Hey everyone, I'm just going to start the AMA for the Toronto Garlic Festival. So my name is Cheyenne Sundance. I run Sundance Harvest, which is a year-round urban farm in Toronto. And Sundance Harvest produces greens, tomatoes, herbs, and a bunch of other great produce. Having a farm in Toronto has been very beneficial to me, and Sundance Harvest is a multi-location farm. Right now I'm actually outside at one of Sundance Harvest's plots. Beyond just growing produce, what I also do is I have another program called Growing in the Margins. And Growing in the Margins is a free education program for youth who are marginalized in the food system. So youth who are Black, Indigenous, POC, queer, trans, two-spirit, non-binary, and youth with disabilities. Having both a farm and running this really cool soon-to-be nonprofit has really allowed me to understand how urban agriculture has a really big stake in the city of Toronto. So yeah, I'm at one of the plots today and I figured why not have a great AMA. So I'm going to be answering some of the questions about garlic, but also my experience growing it, as well as being a young farmer. So first I'll talk about what is Sundance Harvest a bit more and where I operate. So my year-round greenhouse is in Downsview Park. It's about 2,600 square feet. Because I focus mainly on greenhouse production, I can do year-round growing quite well. And the other plots I have are going to be opening up next year, so that includes a rural farm and also a large-scale urban farm that is earth-based in Toronto. I've personally myself growing garlic. I've grown garlic a few times in the earth before, and I haven't obviously grown garlic in my greenhouse because garlic, as many of you know, needs to overwinter. And by overwinter, that means that you plant garlic usually sometime in October and you harvest it in midsummer, so July or August, depending on the type of climate you're in. So that makes garlic a long season crop. So for me, I tend to plant as a farmer shorter season crops, so crops that can be harvested within, I would say, a month to 3 months. But garlic has been one of the crops that have been super helpful for me in terms of a great yield, but also being able to store it for quite a while. So as a farmer, I've grown garlic a few times. I've grown garlic on half an acre before, and I felt like that was beneficial. And I also have grown it on as little as like 100 square feet, which was also fun. The cool thing about garlic is there's so many varieties, so there's tens and tens of varieties. I usually grow elephant garlic or music. Another great variety is called porcelain and purple stripe, which has a really cool purple tinge to it. So with growing garlic, you can choose really whatever garlic that suits you. There's both hardneck and softneck varieties. The difference between hardneck and softneck regarding garlic means hardneck stores way better in the winter and it tends to overwinter quite well. Softneck tends to grow a bit faster, hence the name soft. The neck is a bit more soft. And also with hardneck and softneck, you'll notice with the bulb formation that hardneck garlic tends to form the bulb at the same place along a spine in the garlic. With softneck, you really won't notice that as the same. So I personally love hardneck because I find in the Canadian winters here, it is a lot better than softneck. And I personally like to store my garlic and cure it so I can have it all season long, even in the cold months when there's not a lot of fun things to eat. So someone says, is there a flavor difference between purple and regular garlic? So honestly, the flavor comes up to the consumer. I actually like the flavor of purple garlic a lot better. I wouldn't say that the flavor is too different. Everything kind of tastes very garlicky, but if you have a more seasoned palate or you're kind of sensitive to flavors and tastes, you'll notice that each garlic has its kind of own taste, which makes it really fun and cool because that means that you can just try lots of different garlics and have some in garlic bread, garlic macaroni, even like roasted garlic itself, which makes it great. And feel free as I keep talking to ask me any questions you have related to garlic. Someone says, where can we get your garlic? So Sundance Harvest does not sell garlic to the public. All of the garlic I grow and I have grown is actually at the Growing in the Margins plots, and because those plots around Toronto are non-for-profit plots, I actually don't sell the produce. However, I would say you'll be able to buy my garlic probably next summer, because I am farming garlic rurally this fall. So that'll be a great option for you all. And I would say any other garlic questions you have, feel free also to ask as well. I can answer some of my questions now. So running Sundance Harvest, and keep in mind I'm at a plot right now, so there might be some squirrels or birds noises. Running Sundance Harvest as a young farmer has been has been a really good experience, and being in urban agriculture has especially helped that a lot. So I would say for a lot of young farmers, especially farmers of color and farmers without privilege such as wealth or even a car transportation, learning about farming is really hard if you can't access the country. If you can't, work on a farm in Guelph or Milton or something like that, there's not a lot of options for young people, especially young people with marginalizations in the food system. So I found that urban farming has helped a lot. And because of my program, Growing in the Margins, it gives youth an actual place to learn how to grow food in the city. And they can take that skill outside of the city and start their own farms or projects. So I would say as a young farmer, what has helped me the best is having access to learning opportunities in the city. And now I run Sundance Harvest, and it's been 2 years. So we have some of the questions in the chat that I'm going to answer. What's the best garlic for pickling? So personally, I like to pickle elephant garlic, and I like to do that because of the large cloves. Keep in mind, the larger the cloves, the longer the flavor is going to be in that clove, the longer it will take. So it's up to you. I would say the best garlic for pickling, in my opinion, is probably hardneck. I use hardneck for a lot of my cooking purposes, and there's a few reasons for that. If you're pickling, I'm assuming that you want to do a lot of pickling to really utilize your recipe and maybe the amount of garlic that you have. And with hardneck varieties, you'll find that the clove tends to be a bit bigger, and it's more easy to take off of the spine of the garlic. So I tend to like hardneck. You can play around with different types of garlic. The cool thing about different varieties is they all just overall taste like garlic. So you can throw in a music in there, a porcelain. You can really have a great time with that. So that's what I would say. Someone said, what's the strongest garlic you grow? So the strongest garlic I grow, honestly, I'd probably say music. Music is a garlic that the majority of farmers grow. I found that I can get really good seed from it. However, I really encourage home growers to play around with it. Having a home garden, a homestead, or even a small plot of land that you're growing in allows you to actually have a really good time experimenting with different flavors and different types of garlics like softneck and hardneck and all that stuff. Farming garlic itself, I would say, is a bit different because I have to actually choose my garlic when I know that it's going to provide a good yield. So maybe I want to grow this really cool and hip heirloom garlic, but I actually won't have a good yield from it. So therefore, it taking up half an acre will be very difficult for me. So I would say if you're a home gardener, home grower, really play around with the garlic types. Talk to your local farmers who are selling garlic seed and ask, what's kind of an unusual seed? And then you can find probably some really great garlic from that. So that's what I would say for sure. So someone else asked, is there a specific way to process or prepare before pickling? So there's lots of great recipes, and I'm sure that Toronto Garlic Festival will post about that because you can do so many ways to prepare garlic. So someone said, again, how much maintenance is involved with growing garlic in an urban environment? That's a great question. So growing garlic in an urban environment compared to a rural environment looks almost exactly the same. The difference between a rural environment and an urban environment is in Toronto, we tend to have something called a microclimate. And what a microclimate is a climate that is a bit more warmer than the country. So it's kind of like a little pocket of warmth. I would say the same rules apply. You want to ensure that you get your garlic in sometime in October. You want to make sure you amend it with compost. For me, what I do is I plant my garlic between October 15th and Halloween. And what I do then is I add about 6 inches of compost, and that may be a lot to some people, but it works for me. And then from that point, I have some straw or fall leaves or wood chips on top of it. And that way the garlic is tucked in for the night and insulated. And the reason you want to plant garlic in October and not earlier is because you want the garlic to establish some roots, but you don't want the little green tip to grow up. Because you don't want the foliage to start growing, because once the frost really hits, then what will happen is you'll have a lot of dieback and the garlic will be affected. So you do want some roots to, root, and then from that point your garlic will be okay to survive over the winter. Really, with planting in October, the main thing you want to focus on is root growth. So the same maintenance applies. I would say though, in an urban setting, you're probably going to want to plant your garlic a bit later. So sometimes if I'm planting in an urban setting, I plant my garlic around the last week of October. But if I'm in a rural setting, it's probably 2 weeks or a week before, because you really want to focus on the zone you're in. So I'm guessing that a lot of people here are from Toronto, but maybe you're not. So you really want to focus on the zone you're in, and going to a site like the Farmer's Almanac or any other site, or just doing a quick Google search can help you understand the zone you're in, and then you'll know when your first frost date is. So it's very important to plant garlic 4 weeks before the first frost date. And what that means is the date that it becomes really, really cold and most plants die off. So that's a very important point to make. Any other questions, feel free to add in. I answered the when you're planting garlic. Where do you buy garlic for planting? Organic or not organic? All these great questions. So buying garlic for planting, you can buy it from a local farmer at the farmer's market or online who you know sells garlic. I'm sure that the Toronto Garlic Festival maybe has some like references for buying garlic. If, for example, right now there's not a lot of seed garlic, you can't really find garlic. Something that I have done in the past, and you could do too, is actually buy garlic at a grocery store. You can buy garlic at like an organic grocery store as long as you know it's Ontario grown, and you're probably going to have a pretty good success rate. Some people will tell you not to do this because of disease in the seed, and getting seed garlic really ensures that you have a disease-free seed. But for me, if I know that I only want like a little bit of garlic or all the garlic is sold out, what I choose to do is I end up actually just buying it at an organic store, and the garlic is fine, and I've done that for 5 years now at my small plots in the city, and it's been good. So I would always say, probably first and foremost, contact the farmer directly and ask about seed. And if you have an issue regarding that, you can just buy it at an organic grocery store. You really want to make sure that it is local and preferably organic. But if you can't afford that, that's okay. And you still probably want to grow garlic, and that's still a great idea. So then just at least make sure it's Ontario grown. Someone said, can you plant garlic in pots? So I usually don't recommend planting garlic in pots for a few reasons. When a plant overwinters, such as a perennial and garlic, I wouldn't call a garlic a perennial, just a plant that overwinters, you're going to want to make sure that the soil is very warm and can house the roots and ensure that the roots don't get too bitten by frost. When you're growing in a pot, you don't have like the large surface area of the soil. For example, an easy example is think of a river compared to an ocean. A river heats up and cools down much faster than an ocean. An ocean heats up and cools down much slower because it's a larger body of water, so it takes a longer time to have temperature fluctuations. The same thing with a pot. A pot, for example, a 10-inch diameter pot, has a smaller body of soil, so what happens is it heats up and cools down much faster than like your earth plot. So let's say if it was really, really cold one night in January or February and your pot got to minus 20 degrees Celsius because it was such a small body of soil compared to growing on the earth, you're probably going to have garlic that doesn't really do that well. It's a bit frostbitten because despite garlic being able to overwinter, honestly, it can't survive extremely cold temperatures, especially if it isn't properly insulated. But if you still want to grow in a container, you can grow garlic in a container. What I would say is make sure the container, if possible, is backing on your home wall. So like some type of wall. Like if I had a garlic container here, I would have the container next to the wall, like right directly next to the wall. So at least one side of the container is kind of sheltered from wind. And then I would just really insulate it really, really well with lots of wood chips and lots of mulch. And I would actually put containers around it to provide a wind barrier. So that's some examples I can give you. So someone says, what's the difference between Ontario grown garlic versus supermarket garlic grown in China, other than supporting local growers? So I would say there's a few differences, the varieties that are grown, also the taste and the quality. But when we're thinking overall why it's important to buy local garlic, especially for seed saving, it's because that seed, amongst with lots of other seeds, has a specific DNA. So when we're thinking about growing seed and saving seed, let's say I've been growing seed for 5 years at one certain location, and I've been saving that seed and growing that kale or collards or whatever crop. The seed I save year after year will be more acclimatized to that soil, which is actually very important because with garlic, planting garlic and saving seed from that garlic that you just planted helps you to have, in my opinion, a bigger and more vigorous crop because that seed is used to the area that it's being grown in. And seed from China is a very different type of climate, very different type of area, and has a little plane above me. Maybe it's the X. environment and varieties and all that stuff. So I would say beyond supporting our local growers, the seed and the quality and how it can survive and thrive in our climate isn't the same. And of course, supporting organic and ecological growing is paramount. For good garlic, we need good soil, and without good soil practices, you're not going to really get a good harvest and a long-term harvest. So I'll answer some of the other questions. What sort of vulnerabilities one should take care of when planting them in a home kitchen garden? With garlic, it's a fairly easy crop. It doesn't really have a lot of pests unless you, for example, have garlic seed that has some type of pest that's carrying over. I would say the biggest thing is ensuring that you mulch it well in the winter and you feed it a lot of compost. Garlic is kind of a crop where you take care of it all at once and then you set it aside. You really want to make sure you put on a lot of compost when you plant your garlic, and you want to ensure that you plant garlic in a location that isn't too wet. Garlic does not like having wet feet and being waterlogged, so ensure that you're not planting it at the bottom of a slope or a hill, because when the rain falls, it'll just pool around the garlic and it may rot. So someone says, how much pounds of garlic is needed to plant 1/4 an acre? So I'm not going to really answer that now because that takes a lot of math, and I feel like I might not be the best one to answer that, but you're going to need pounds and pounds, and there's lots of great resources about that online as well if you search that up. So I'm going to answer some other questions. So my future regarding growing garlic and all of that stuff, I can talk about a bit. So for me at Sundance Harvest, I'm going to grow garlic at my rural farm location. I do think growing garlic in a city is really great. The cool thing about garlic is you can get a 2-for-1 in the crop. So you can get garlic itself, and then you can also get the garlic scapes, which is amazing because the garlic scapes can be harvested right before the garlic. And there's another plane as well. So the garlic scapes, I think it's gone now. So the garlic scapes can also be harvested like the garlic. You harvest garlic scapes before garlic when it forms the second or third curl, and it's really important to harvest the garlic scapes. So I would say my future productions regarding garlic is going to be in an urban and rural setting. I'm going to preference a rural setting, and I'm going to be growing lots of scapes. So that's a bit about garlic. If you have any final questions, let me know. Thank you for watching as well. Any final questions I can answer? I'm just at one of the youth plots right now, having a good time. What time is it? Okay, so I've been on the chat for about, 20-ish minutes. I can talk a bit more about some garlic important tips for about 5 more minutes, and then I'm gonna head out. So some other tips you want to focus on with garlic is when you have a garlic bulb, let's say you have a garlic bulb and you want to plant it right away, you want to make sure that you don't take off the papery coating. So kind of when we eat garlic, we peel off the paper. What you want to focus on is not peeling off the paper when you plant, because the paper is very important to help insulate the garlic in the soil. Someone said, I just want to say thanks for holding this AMA. I've always loved garlic, but I think I've learned more about it in the last 20 minutes than the rest of my life. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, garlic honestly is such an easy crop. Planting garlic is a great idea because if you know you're someone who is very busy, I'm going to walk away from these planes. If you know you're someone who is very busy, so if you know you're someone who's very busy in the springtime and you want to ensure that you have a nice harvest, but you don't want to do too much work, which is very valid, planting garlic makes it super easy. So the key things to take away from this talk, I'll reiterate: ensure that you plant garlic that is Ontario grown. So that could be through a farmer's market, a seed catalog, or just buying it at a grocery store that is organic and local, or at least local. The second thing you want to take home with is planting garlic in the month of October. The third thing is making sure that you fertilize it well with the compost, add a good chunk of straw on top or fall leaves. And then the last thing you want to take in is ensuring when you're planting the garlic, you're leaving the little papery coating on it, and that's really all. So I hope you'd like this AMA, and if you're curious about Sundance Harvest, my experience as a young farmer, and also how I operate my farm, feel free to check me out at Sundance Harvest on Instagram. I have pinned my little handle on this chat, and I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope you have a really good time hearing the rest of the speakers and being a part of this online virtual festival because it sounds really cool, the next lineup. And I'm glad I could be here to talk a bit about garlic and answer your questions. So bye, have a nice day.